When my future mother-in-law demanded $100,000 to approve my marriage, I realized love wasn't what this family valued. It was control. My name is Harper Lane. I'm 29, and I built my own marketing company from the ground up in Austin, Texas. I never thought I'd fall for someone from a world so different from mine. But then I met Colton Reeves. He was 32, charming, confident, and came from one of those old families that seem to own half the city. When we got engaged, I thought we could blend our worlds, my simple one and his polished one. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Colton said his mom wanted to officially welcome me into the family. I took it as a good sign. We met at an expensive restaurant where everything smelled like money and pressure. Vivian Reeves, his mother, arrived perfectly dressed, her diamond bracelet catching the light every time she lifted her glass. Her smile was polite but cold, the kind that said she was already judging me. At first, the talk was small, whether wedding plans my business. Then Vivian leaned forward and said, as casually as if she were asking me to pass the salt, "In our family, every fiancé shows commitment by contributing to the family company. It's tradition. $100,000 is the usual amount." I froze, thinking she had to be joking. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked. She smiled wider. "It's a gesture of loyalty, dear. It shows you're serious about joining us. We all invest in each other." I looked at Colton, waiting for him to step in. He didn't. His jaw tightened, his eyes dropped to his plate. That silence hurt more than her words. "I'm not paying anyone to marry their son," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Vivian's smile faded. "You misunderstand," she replied. "This is how we protect the family legacy." Protect it from what, love? I couldn't believe this was real. The rest of dinner felt like an act. Vivian talked about wedding venues and family expectations, as if she hadn't just put a price tag on me. Colton stayed quiet, barely meeting my eyes. When we left the restaurant, he muttered, "She didn't mean it like that. It's just how she is." I realized then that he wasn't defending me because he couldn't. He'd been raised to obey her. Driving home, my engagement ring suddenly felt heavy. I stared out the window, wondering if I was marrying a man or his mother's puppet. Colton tried to explain everything the next morning, as if the dinner hadn't been a disaster. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, his tie already in place for work, his coffee steaming between us. "It's not about the money," he said softly. "It's just tradition. Every woman who marries into the family contributes something. It's symbolic." I stared at him, trying to understand how someone so smart could sound so blind. $100,000 isn't symbolic, Colton. It's a demand, I said. And the worst part is that you sat there and let her talk to me like that. He rubbed his temples, avoiding my eyes. "You're overreacting. Mom just wants to know you're committed. She's not trying to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "Not trying to hurt me? She's treating me like a business deal." After that, things between us changed. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his mother, and every time he read them, his expression tightened. I didn't need to see the screen to know she was behind every little argument that followed. Then she started messaging me directly. The first text said, "Harper, I think we should pause wedding planning until you're in a better frame of mind." Another came a day later. "If we can't see eye to eye, maybe we need to rethink everything." They were worded politely, but I could read the threat underneath. Pay up or lose him. Still, I tried to stay calm. I wanted to believe Colton would come to his senses. But then I noticed how deep Vivian's control really ran. When I met the wedding planner, she mentioned that the venue deposit had already been handled by the Reeves family company. The caterer, the photographer, even the florist were all connected to their network. Every contract listed the family's business as the sponsor. It wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a corporate event with my name on it. That night, I sat on the bed scrolling through invoices, my stomach turning. I was being pulled into their web, one financial thread at a time. If I went through with this, I wouldn't just be marrying Colton. I'd be tied to his mother's empire. When I confronted him about it, he sighed, already annoyed. "You're making Mom anxious, Harper. She's just trying to help." "Help," I repeated. "By owning every part of our wedding?" He didn't answer. He just stood up and walked out of the room. That silence said everything. I spent the next few days pretending things were normal. I went to work, smiled when I had to, and acted like I wasn't falling apart inside. But behind that calm, I started digging. I looked up the Reeves Company records, the history of their family investments, anything I could find online or through business contacts. Something told me that this wasn't just about money or power. There was something darker behind that so-called tradition, and I was going to find it. I couldn't stop thinking about everything. The money, the contracts, the way Vivian seemed to control every move we made. It all felt wrong, too polished, too planned. One night after work, I sat at my desk with my laptop open, determined to find out what was really going on with the Reeves family business. It didn't take long before I found old filings online. Their real estate company had layers upon layers of smaller businesses connected to it. The names looked random: Cedar Point Holdings, Blue Birch Investments, Valley Sun Partners. When I looked deeper, I noticed the same people listed as managers again and again, often using different addresses. It didn't make sense. Why would one family need so many separate companies under their name? Then I stumbled across a news clipping from years ago mentioning a family investment contribution made by another woman who married into the Reeves family. My heart started pounding. Could this be the same so-called tradition? I searched her name, and sure enough, there it was. Records showing she had transferred exactly $100,000 to one of those shell companies just before her wedding. And then months later, that company was dissolved. The money vanished into thin air. I spent the next few days digging through public databases, cross-checking names, and connecting dots. The pattern was unmistakable. Every new bride had made that same gesture of loyalty. Every payment had gone into one of Vivian's fake companies. And all those companies disappeared after a short while. It wasn't tradition, it was theft. I didn't know what to do with what I'd found. It was too big for me to handle alone, so I called the one person I trusted completely, my best friend, Nora. She's a certified public accountant, the kind of person who can read a financial report like a novel. When I showed her everything, she went quiet for a long time. Then she looked up and said, "Harper, this isn't just shady bookkeeping. This is money laundering." The words made my stomach drop. "You're sure?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I've seen patterns like this before in fraud investigations. Vivian isn't just taking money. She's cleaning it through fake companies. And if she's done this for years, it means there's a lot more than a few $100,000 at stake." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the air leave my lungs. I had been planning a wedding with a family that might be involved in crimes. I thought I was fighting greed, but now I realized I was walking into something dangerous. Still, I needed proof, real proof. So I started quietly saving copies of every document I found. I printed filings, screenshots, transaction histories, anything that could show the pattern. I kept them in a folder at work, away from Colton. When I tried to talk to him about it, he didn't want to hear it. "Harper, you're being paranoid," he said, his tone sharp. "You're disrespecting my family over rumors and paperwork you don't even understand." "I understand enough," I said. "Your mother's been stealing from people, Colton. That money your brides bring in, it disappears." He shook his head and laughed bitterly. "You sound crazy. You've always had issues with my mom, and now you're inventing crimes to make yourself feel better." It was like hitting a wall. No matter what I said, he twisted it back on me. I could see now that he wasn't going to believe me, or maybe he didn't want to. That night, after he went to bed, I sat alone in the living room staring at the folder of evidence. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I finally knew the truth. I wasn't just dealing with a controlling mother-in-law. I was standing in the middle of a criminal family's cover-up, and if I wanted to survive it, I had to be careful, smart, and very, very quiet. Vivian finally showed her true colors one afternoon when she called me to clear the air. Her voice was calm, too calm, the way people sound when they're about to say something cruel. "Harper," she said, "I've given this a lot of thought. Either you pay the $100,000, or this wedding doesn't happen. I won't let my son marry someone who can't respect our family's way of doing things." I felt my chest tighten. "So that's it?" I asked. "You're putting a price tag on your son's marriage?" "It's not a price tag," she said smoothly. "It's about loyalty. If you can't make that commitment, then maybe you're not ready to join this family." For a moment, I couldn't even respond. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. I sat on the couch, shaking, the phone still in my hand. When Colton came home that night, I told him exactly what his mother said. I expected him to be angry at her. But instead, he looked tired, defeated. "Maybe just do it," he said softly. I stared at him. "What did you just say?" "Just pay her," he repeated. "It's not worth the fight. It'll make things easier for everyone." I laughed, but it came out like a sob. "For everyone? You mean for her?" He rubbed his forehead. "Harper, I just want peace. Once she sees you're serious, she'll back off." That was the moment something inside me cracked. I realized he wasn't going to protect me. He wasn't going to stand up for us. He just wanted to keep his mother happy, no matter the cost. I went to bed without saying another word. I didn't sleep at all. I stared at the ceiling, feeling my love for him turn into something cold and painful. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I met him in the kitchen. He looked hopeful, like maybe I'd changed my mind. But I hadn't. "I can't do this, Colton," I said quietly. "We see the world too differently." He froze, then whispered, "You're ending it?" "I have to," I said. "I can't marry into a family that thinks money equals love." I packed my things that afternoon and left our apartment without looking back. There were no screaming matches, no big scenes. Just silence, the kind that follows something that's truly over. But Vivian wasn't finished with me. Within days, people in my professional circle started acting distant. A few clients canceled contracts, claiming budget cuts. Then I heard the rumors. Vivian had been calling people, saying I'd tried to take advantage of her son, that I was a gold digger who got angry when I couldn't get what I wanted. I didn't even know she knew half those people, but apparently her family's reach went deeper than I'd realized. My reputation, the one I'd worked years to build, started to crumble almost overnight. At first, I was devastated. I cried, I questioned everything, and I hated that she still had power over me even after I walked away. But grief slowly turned into anger. Vivian had taken too much already. My peace, my career, my sense of safety. Sitting in my empty apartment one night, surrounded by boxes and silence, I promised myself she wouldn't win. She thought she'd broken me, but all she'd done was wake something stronger inside me. The heartbreak was still there, but beneath it, something new was starting to burn. Not sadness. Not fear. It was rage, and I knew I was going to use it. Moving to Denver felt like starting life on a blank page. I didn't know anyone there, and that was exactly what I needed. No whispers about the Reeves family, no pitying looks, no one asking about my broken engagement. I found a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy, just enough space for me and my laptop. It felt strange at first, waking up without the noise of someone else's expectations, but the silence became comforting. I threw myself into work. I started my own small marketing agency, just me at first, working long hours from my kitchen table. Every client I found, I earned myself. I didn't want help from anyone connected to the Reeves name. I told myself I'd rather struggle on my own than owe anything to that family again. Slowly, the business began to grow. I hired a few freelancers, picked up steady contracts, and started feeling like myself again. But even as I built something new, the past didn't leave me. Vivian's voice still echoed in my mind sometimes, cold and smug. I knew what she had done to me wasn't just personal. It was part of something bigger and darker. I still had the folder of documents I'd saved back in Austin. Every time I looked at it, I felt that quiet burn of anger return. One night, I called Nora. She was still my rock, still working as a CPA, sharp and fearless. I told her I wanted to dig deeper into the Reeves company. She didn't even hesitate. "Send me what you have," she said. Over the next few weeks, Nora started connecting dots that I hadn't seen before. "It's not just the brides," she told me over the phone one evening. "They're moving investor money around too, same pattern, same shell companies. They're embezzling, Harper. It's serious." Hearing that made my pulse race. I knew Vivian was greedy, but I hadn't realized just how deep it went. This wasn't just about pride or family power. It was criminal. I didn't want revenge in the way people imagine it. I didn't want to scream or destroy things. I wanted to show the truth. Quietly. Smartly. The way she'd never see coming. So I started building my case. I kept every record Nora found, every file, every name, every number. I made backups on hard drives, printed copies, stored them in a safe box. I wanted to be ready when the time came. At night, when I worked late at my desk, I sometimes caught my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, calm face, a different version of myself. I wasn't the woman who begged for love anymore. I was the woman who was going to make them answer for what they'd done. I stopped thinking about forgiveness. I stopped caring about their opinions or their power. The Reeves family thought they could silence anyone with money. But I had something stronger now, truth and patience. My new motto kept me steady whenever anger flared. Let them choke on their own greed. 2 years passed before I heard the Reeves name again. Life in Denver had settled into a quiet rhythm. My agency was steady, with enough clients to keep me busy but not overwhelmed. I didn't think about them much anymore, until one morning, while reading through new business proposals, I saw a familiar name on a potential partnership list. Reeves Development Group. They were launching a massive luxury project, something that was already making headlines across real estate circles. The kind of project that could make or break reputations. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something in me stirred. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe unfinished business, or maybe it was that quiet voice whispering that this was the chance I'd been waiting for. The partnership wasn't directly with them. It was through another firm that wanted marketing work done for the project's public launch. It meant I could be involved without them realizing who I was. I decided to take it, but through one of my smaller subsidiaries, a name that wouldn't raise any suspicion. The first meeting took place in a sleek downtown office. I walked in, calm and composed, hiding the storm underneath. When I saw Colton sitting at the table, I almost lost my breath. He looked different, older, thinner, the charm worn off. His smile was strained, his eyes tired. He didn't recognize me at first. My hair was darker now, and I was going by a different name for the project. Across the table sat Vivian, still dressed like she owned the world. Her confidence hadn't changed, but her face carried new lines of stress. She smiled politely when I introduced myself under my project alias. "Your firm comes highly recommended," she said. "We like professionals who understand discretion." Her words nearly made me laugh, but I kept my face neutral. "Discretion is what we do best," I replied. As we discussed the marketing plans, I studied every detail, how they spoke, what they hid behind polished smiles. Vivian bragged about the investors, about how much money the project would bring in. It sounded perfect on the surface, but I could already sense the cracks underneath. Colton finally looked at me closely during a break. His brow furrowed slightly, like something about me seemed familiar, but he didn't say anything. I met his eyes for only a second before turning away. I wasn't here to reopen old wounds. I was here for the truth. Over the next few weeks, I worked quietly, blending in. No one suspected anything. I gained access to project data, financial reports, and investor briefings. It was all within reach. Every file, every meeting, every careless sentence was another piece of their puzzle. Vivian praised my team repeatedly, never realizing she was complimenting the woman she once tried to destroy. Each word from her made me more certain that this was fate bringing me full circle. My plan was simple: get close enough to see everything, gather proof, and when the time was right, expose them completely. I wasn't doing it for revenge anymore. I was doing it for justice. They'd built their empire on lies, and I was finally standing where I could pull the first thread. Working on the project gave me more access than I ever expected. Vivian trusted my marketing firm completely. She approved every report I asked for, every internal document I claimed to need for public image analysis. She didn't think twice. Her pride made her careless. Through those files, I started seeing patterns that didn't belong. The company's charity fund, which was supposed to help build affordable housing for veterans, was missing large sums of money. Transactions were hidden under vague descriptions like consulting fees and project support. But when I traced them, they led to offshore accounts under fake company names. The same kind of setup Vivian had used before. The more I dug, the worse it looked. The Reeves family wasn't just lying to investors. They were stealing from the very people they claimed to help. Money meant for veterans' housing was being funneled into luxury projects and private accounts. It made me sick, but it also fueled me. Vivian had no idea who I really was. She even invited me to a private lunch once to thank me for my professionalism. I smiled through the entire meal, nodding as she bragged about her strong ethics and commitment to transparency. Every word she said made me want to laugh. If she only knew. Over time, I began to quietly influence some of the investors. During meetings, I'd ask small, innocent questions like, wouldn't it look better if all financials were made public for credibility? Or full transparency reports always build trust with the public. The idea spread naturally, and soon the investors started demanding detailed audits. Vivian, of course, agreed, confident nothing could touch her. Colton was different, though. He'd become quieter, watching me more closely every time we met. He seemed uneasy, like something about me didn't fit. I avoided direct eye contact with him, kept my tone professional, but I could feel his eyes following me. One night, after a long board meeting that dragged past midnight, everyone left except us. I was packing up my laptop when I heard his voice behind me. "Harper, is that you?" I froze for a second before turning around. His face was pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I smiled slightly, calm and steady. Finally caught on, huh? He didn't answer. He just stood there, speechless, realizing what that meant. That I was inside his mother's empire, the one she'd built on lies, and I was about to bring it all down. The day of the big investor meeting arrived, and I knew it was time. Everything I had gathered, the stolen charity funds, the shell companies, the fake contracts, it was all ready. The investors believed the meeting was to discuss the progress of the luxury project, but I had something else planned. Vivian walked into the boardroom looking confident as always, dressed in a perfect navy suit and pearls. Colton followed, looking tired and uneasy. I sat at the far end of the table, my laptop already connected to the screen. No one in the room knew what was about to happen. Vivian started the meeting with her usual charm, thanking everyone for their trust and commitment. When she finally turned to me to present the marketing updates, I stood up slowly and took a breath. Before I begin, I said, I think there's something important everyone here deserves to see. I clicked a button and the large screen behind me lit up, not with marketing slides, but with financial statements, wire transfers, and corporate filings. The room went silent. Numbers and names filled the screen, all tracing back to the same source, Vivian Reeves and her companies. One investor leaned forward. What is this? This, I said calmly, is where your money has really been going. The Reeves Development Group has been moving funds from charity accounts and veteran housing projects into offshore companies owned by Mrs. Reeves. I have documents to prove every transaction. Vivian's face turned pale. What kind of stunt is this? She snapped. I met her eyes for the first time in years. No stunt, just truth. Colton looked like he couldn't breathe. He whispered, Harper, as realization washed over him. The investors started asking questions all at once. Some shouted. One man slammed his notebook shut, demanding to know how long this had been happening. Vivian tried to talk over them, insisting it was a misunderstanding, but the evidence spoke for itself. Then one of the reporters who'd been invited to cover the project launch stood up, phone in hand, already recording. This is going public, she said quietly. Vivian's control slipped completely. You think you can destroy me? She hissed. I stayed calm. No, Vivian. You destroyed yourself. You taught me the value of loyalty and the cost of buying it. Security guards entered the room as the noise grew louder. Some investors were on their phones, already calling their lawyers. Colton sat motionless, staring at the table, tears forming in his eyes. When security approached Vivian, she turned to me one last time, her voice trembling. You'll regret this. I looked at her without emotion. I already did. Years ago. As they escorted her out for questioning, the cameras flashed and the reporters followed. The woman who once controlled everything was now the headline of her own downfall. I gathered my laptop, closed the folder of evidence, and walked out quietly. No triumph, no smile. Just peace. The truth had finally done what money never could. It ended her empire. Months passed after the scandal, and everything slowly began to settle. The Reeves name was all over the news for weeks. Lawsuits, frozen accounts, and endless reports of their crimes. Vivian disappeared from the public eye after the investigation started, and Colton sold what was left of the family business to pay legal fees. I didn't follow it closely. I had done what I came to do, and I wanted to move forward. The rumors that once surrounded me began to fade. Clients who had left me before started reaching out again, apologizing, pretending they'd never doubted me. My agency grew faster than I expected. We landed new contracts, bigger ones, and I finally hired a full team. For the first time in years, I felt free to breathe. Nora was the one who noticed how tired I looked. You should take a break, she said one afternoon. A real one. No laptop, no calls. You've earned it. I laughed, brushing her off at first, but deep down I knew she was right. For so long, I had lived on anger and purpose. It had pushed me forward, but it had also kept me chained to the past. Maybe it was time to stop looking back. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. It didn't have a return address, but I knew who it was from the moment I saw the handwriting. Colton. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the envelope for a long time before opening it. His words were short and uneven. He wrote, I was weak. You were right. I should have protected you, not them. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to tell you I'm sorry. I read it once, slowly, letting each word sink in. Then I folded the letter carefully, placed it in a small metal bowl, and set it on fire. I watched the paper curl and darken until it was nothing but ash. There was nothing left to say. Revenge hadn't given me joy. It had given me peace, the kind that comes when the truth finally replaces the lies. I realized I hadn't destroyed them to feel powerful. I had done it to let go. Still, sometimes at night, when everything is quiet, I feel that faint ache inside me. It's not anger or regret, just the memory of the love I lost to greed. Some wounds don't vanish. They just fade into the background, like scars that no longer hurt but never disappear completely. The deal I had been working on for months finally came through. It was a partnership with a major firm that would make my agency one of the top marketing consultancies in the region. When I signed the final papers, I sat for a long time just staring at the document. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about freedom. Every word on that contract proved that I had built something no one could take away from me again. The partnership came with an invitation to a charity gala hosted by one of the city's biggest foundations. I almost didn't go, but Nora insisted. "It's good for business," she said. "And maybe it's time you stop hiding from the world." The ballroom was bright and full of laughter when I arrived. Crystal lights sparkled overhead, and the sound of music filled the air. I moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, greeting people I once only dreamed of working with. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Then, just as I was about to leave, I heard a voice I hadn't expected to ever hear again. "Harper." I turned, and there she was, Vivian Reeves. She looked smaller somehow, older, as if the weight of everything she had done had finally caught up to her. Her hair was thinner, her skin pale, and the proud glimmer in her eyes was gone. She wasn't surrounded by admirers anymore. She stood alone near the edge of the room, holding a glass she didn't seem to really want. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. She looked at me the way people look at ghosts. Then she stepped closer and whispered, her voice trembling, "You ruined us." I didn't flinch. I looked her straight in the eyes and said softly, "No, you priced your own family." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. The truth hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I felt no anger toward her anymore, only a deep, quiet pity. She had spent her life trying to control everything, and now she had nothing left. I turned away and walked toward the exit. Outside, the night air was cool and clean, carrying the faint sound of music from the ballroom behind me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of the past pressing on my chest. I stood under the city lights, breathing deeply, knowing that my life finally belonged only to me. I didn't need closure or revenge anymore. I had something far more valuable, the truth. Some debts aren't paid in dollars. They're settled in truth. Thank you, dear family, for always watching and supporting our channel. Your love, encouragement, and kindness mean the world to us. We truly appreciate every like, comment, and share. You're the reason we keep creating and growing together.